For the last 30 days, I spent money intentionally. Yes, I actually said for the next 30 days, I'm going to spend money and I'm going to do it with intention. And I learned quite a few things throughout this experience, so stick around. I'm going to be sharing all of my updates. Hey, what's up guys? It's Justine with Debt Free Millennials, the channel to help you crush your debt and live payment free. Now, I had seen a lot of videos about no buy challenges or not spending any money on YouTube, but I didn't see any YouTube videos that talked about intentionally spending money and doing it in a way that actually helps you with your financial goals. And so if you haven't checked out my 30-day intentional spending challenge video where I talk about the basic rules, how to get started, you can do this any time of year. I will link to that up here in the cards for you to check out. So I really tracked 4 different things for my intentional spending challenge for this one. So I tracked Target and Amazon purchases. I also tracked food, and then my last category was baby items. Anything for my daughter Quinn that I was wanting to buy, I tracked it here. The reason why I chose those items and those categories is because I felt like those were the categories that I tend to spend the most often, and I tend to rack up a very high bill. So I wanted to make sure, like, it's okay if I spend a lot of money on those categories. Let's make sure this is something that I absolutely feel positive about and that I'm not feeling negative or neutral about. If I did feel negative or neutral about spending, then I could take a look at that and see what ways or areas I can cut back on to reduce those negative feelings and really increase that positive feeling when I was spending money. So the first question is, how much money did I spend in these categories in 30 days? It was a lot more than I anticipated, let me tell you that much. I spent $1,585.96. This is a lot of money to spend in 30 days. I actually was very surprised. I'm pulling up my calculator to see exactly how much this was per day. Just call it $15.86 for simplicity. Roughly $52.86 is what I was spending per day. That was a lot more than what I was anticipating. Okay, I'm going to show you exactly what I spent on screen and how I did my spending tracker for this. By the way, you can use this exact same spending tracker by getting the How to Control Your Spending workbook, which is listed for sale using the link below. This workbook got a major redesign and overhaul in the past few months. I love it, and I actually used one of the trackers for this challenge. It was so helpful. The biggest aha that I got out of this challenge is I spend so much money on food, on groceries, on eating out, on happy hours. Food in general was my biggest expense out of the categories that I tracked. Another aha that I got out of this is that I was spending money and eating out averaging every 3 days. So I averaged every 3 days I was going out for either a happy hour or meeting up with a friend for lunch or something like that. Now there were 2 outliers here that happened over the last 30 days, and that was I went out for lunch and I went out for drinks and dinner for birthdays, and I was celebrating birthdays. So maybe that's not my norm, but then also birthdays are normal, like they happen multiple times throughout the year, and you're gonna celebrate that with friends and family. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that I was averaging about every 3 days I was going out to eat. And so along that same vein, I realized that I really like to connect with friends and people while we're eating out and just eating out outside of the home. I think because the pandemic has really kept me in, and pregnancy and having a newborn, also all of those things can factor into a feeling of isolation, that I really enjoy going out for happy hours with Kyle every single Friday. And then also I'm really enjoying having these additional times to connect with friends and family by eating out and getting outside of my house. So what was my biggest win or biggest positive that came out of this challenge? Well, I think for starters, because the food was such a high expense, I started to see ways that I could scale back on those expenses, so I had a HelloFresh subscription where I was finding that even though the meals were pretty decent and a lot of them were really good and gave me some new ideas, they just didn't sustain us throughout the week. In other words, I never had any leftovers from the meals that I made, so I was constantly at the stove every single night. So I ended up canceling that subscription, which freed up about $140 for the month that now I can use towards regular spending on grocery trips and Costco trips. Another big positive for me that was kind of a surprise is that I found a book, a classic children's book, If You Give a Moose a Muffin for $1 at Goodwill. I'm not typically a thrift store shopper, mainly because I get overwhelmed going into these types of stores. If I don't have an agenda of something that I need or want, then I'm just like, oh, I feel like the walls are caving in on me, and then I leave. So this time I went in there with intention because I knew I wanted more like storytime books for Quinn to read at night, that I just zeroed in on the book section. So already I'm eliminating all of the clothes and clutter that goes along with those sections. Zeroed in on the children's books and just started rifling through the different book titles and found that one, and I literally paid for it with 4 quarters. Like, I think I said this in another video. I'm like, who pays for things with real coin anymore? Okay, the biggest negative, the biggest loss out of all of this, even though I had the realization that I really like to connect with people by eating with them, I also spent $458 on eating out. Now, 2 of those were birthdays, and one of them was a $95 night, which is kind of ridiculous, but we did go out for very fancy cocktails and a very fancy dinner. It was a special occasion, so okay, I knew that's not in my norm, but wow. Even that, subtracting that out, $357 on happy hours and eating out. It was like, okay, do I love this? How am I feeling about this? I'm not loving the amount, so maybe there are some ways that I can take advantage of better deals. We'll see. Also, I have to remember that food and the cost of food has definitely gone up this past year. In 2021 alone, the cost of food has gone up 7%. So how did this challenge help me? I think it helped me zero in on the things that I truly love to spend money on. I really value going out to happy hours every single Friday night with my husband and Quinn. It's a chance for us to unwind from the week, get out of the house, and try something new. We've also learned how to just make happy hour a very early dinner. We used to just go to happy hours and then order takeout from someplace else to eat dinner back at home. Well, we would end up spending a lot more money that way. So instead, we just figured, let's just have a really early dinner, come home, put the baby to bed, and if we're still hungry, we can munch and have snacks here at the house. I also learned that I could say yes to things like shopping for my daughter. I went to Zara, and Zara's already kind of like stupid expensive for clothes, but their clothes are so adorable for kids. Like, they look like basically miniature adult clothes because it looks like clothes that you would wear as an adult. And so I felt really good about this because I feel like the intentional spending challenge actually got me back in touch with the savvy shopper that I used to be during my debt-free journey. I feel like a byproduct of becoming debt-free or an increase in your discretionary income actually can lead to your wallet just kind of becoming a little bit loose, and so you become more free about buying things that aren't on sale or buying things that are maybe like the brand name instead of a generic name because you have more discretionary income. And I felt like this challenge helped me get back in tune with being a savvy shopper so I could still spend money on things that I loved, but also do it in a way that put more dollars in my wallet. So I love Zara. I love their baby line of clothes. It's adorable. I'm obsessed. I learned to just stick to literally the 2 racks of sale items, because they very rarely have sale items in store, and just went through that and said, okay, what are some things that I can pick up and use for later on down the road as Quinn gets older? And so I ended up finding like $7 pairs of pants for her on this clearance rack. And then I did find a sweatshirt for her that was full price, but I didn't feel bad about paying the full price for the sweatshirt because I got such a great deal on the pants. So even though you may not like be totally in tune with like buying children's clothes, maybe there's a different area of your budget where you can say, okay, I don't mind paying full price for, you know, the Kraft American cheese slices for my cheeseburgers, but maybe I can look for the generic pasta in the pasta aisle. And so there are some ways that you can still be savvy in different categories of shopping. And lastly, I could just let go of the things that weren't serving me well or that I was feeling negative about, such as the HelloFresh subscription. I also was thinking about just the cost of, like, sushi was on there, and so learning how to maybe say no to the sushi dinners, but saying yes to the sushi lunches and sushi happy hours. And so there was a way that I still got that treat, but I could do it in a way that matched up with how I wanted to spend my money. So that's how everything unfolded in the last 30 days. I'm really interested in doing this challenge, like maybe on a quarterly basis and switching up the categories that I track. I think it'd be a really good exercise for me and for you to try at home if you want to try the intentional spending challenge. I think this was a really cool eye-opener for me and something that I will definitely do again. If you are into challenges like this, if you want me to continue creating challenges for the future, like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next one.